Hello, I'm going to talk to you about the cognitive developmental approach to moral education. This was a philosophy first stated by John Dewey of the cognitive development approach to moral education, meaning what is right, what is wrong, how do students learn. Piaget again made an effort to define the stages of moral development or the reasoning in children. He did this through observations and interviews with children. Finally, Kohlberg took philosophies from Dewey and Piaget and tried to build upon those. He gave us three levels of development. There's pre-conventional, conventional, and post-conventional. Instead of being wordy, I have found a YouTube video already created, giving credit to Nicole B., who created this for another class. It shows these three stages in a popular movie by the name of Click. And you'll see Adam Sandler able to stop in the movie with his remote and make some changes, and it shows the differences in his moral beliefs and his moral judgment, his moral actions, and that's what these philosophies are based on. Alright, so let's talk about moral judgment versus moral action. After watching the video clips, you should have a better understanding of moral action and moral judgment. And what is the relationship or the relation to each other? Moral judgment is the single most important or influential factor discovered in moral behavior. While other factors do influence moral behavior, the judgment is the only distinctively moral factor in the moral behavior. Moral judgment can change, and it's long range. Moral judgment is long range. It doesn't change. It's irreversible because it's more of a belief, but the behavior can be changed based largely on situational issues and expectations, and it is reversible. So as a school and as a leader, we can change those moral behaviors by setting good examples, by implementing rules and procedures in schools, by teaching civics and responsibility as students and young adults. So while judgment may be drilled in, if you will, we can change some of those behaviors, and hopefully in turn maybe some of those judgments will change, but the behavior is our responsibility.
Chapter 3, Human Development. I want you to think as a leader as we are going over human development, because we've all had the human development and learning classes in undergrad and graduate school, but it has a significant basis on our curriculum, and as leaders we must focus on the development of through adulthood because of the significance of lifelong learning. Curriculum leaders design curricula by the nature and needs of the learners. I'm going to read a quote from the book. It says, "We will be able to create a successful system of education nationwide only when we base everything we do on what is known about how children and youth develop and learn." You can note on page 127 there's 5 aspects of human development to guide curriculum planning and planning for instruction. And that's important as any educator for a leader. There's also another quote. It says, "Effective curriculum leaders strive for deep understanding to know how the informal, the hidden curriculum at the district and or school levels affect the growth and the development for students." There's 4 theories that are discussed in this chapter, and effective curriculum leaders must base their professional decisions on comprehensive, detailed information about the stressors that students are confronted with at home and in their communities. There's an article on Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and in this article there is a revamped pyramid there that the authors have included, and you can also see the classic hierarchy of needs. But the author suggests that the cognitive and developmental priorities may not overlap as perfectly as Maslow had believed. Thus, a key point of this revised perspective is the focus of the ongoing dynamic interactions between the internal motives and their functional links to ongoing environmental threats and opportunities. It also discusses various forms of motivation in that article. The next article that I read in chapter 3 was about Erikson's developmental stages. You can refresh your memory on that on page 168, where it talks about Erikson's 8 stages of developmental psychosocial development there. And of course, as educators, we don't want any of those unfavorable outcomes like of doubt and shame and things like that. But as teachers, we have opportunities for reconfirming their sense of trust and autonomy and initiatives, and for encouraging its growth with the kids. One quote in the book that I'm going to end with, it says, "Much attention must be given to reassuring that America makes good on its promise to youth." And as leaders, we need to focus on that development within our school of our students.
Okay, the question that I'm responding to is, how does human development affect the curriculum that's taught through our school? Our curriculum that's designed for our school is basically designed by our state. Our school itself, within the system here at Hodgeville Elementary School, we want to make sure our students are safe, that they feel loved here, that they feel wanted here. The most important thing in helping them find success through our curriculum is to make them have an effort and to make them comfortable in their surroundings that they have here. Because if they don't feel those things, then they're not going to be worried about the curriculum whatsoever. But we want to give them the best chance to be successful in kindergarten through 5th grade by allowing them to feel comfortable, to work hard, and then find success wherever they're at academically within that curriculum. Our teachers do a wonderful job with that, meeting the needs of our students, and we hope we have that culture throughout our building.
Hi everyone! So far in chapters 2 and 3, we've looked at social forces and human development as basis for curriculum. In chapter 4, we'll look at the third basis of curriculum, the nature of learning and learning styles. An understanding of how human beings learn is of central importance for us as curriculum leaders. We'll first begin looking at the 2 families of learning theories and their distinguishing features. Also, as curriculum leaders, this is important to know because each theory defines the curriculum differently and leads to different instructional strategies. Teaching practices are usually based on both families of theories to allow for the diverse needs of learners and the knowledge to be learned. Learning is a change in an individual's knowledge or behavior that results from experience. There are 2 families of learning theories, behavioral and cognitive, with many subgroups existing within these 2 families. Behavioral learning theories emphasize observable changes in behavior that result from stimulus-response associations made by the learner. Learning is a conditioning process. Social learning theories reflect similar principles of behavioral learning. However, there is a greater emphasis on the influence of external cues. According to this view, learning occurs through socialization. Modeling is a dimension of the curriculum whenever a teacher uses the 3 basic steps of mental modeling, otherwise known as thinking aloud. Cognitive learning theories focus on the mental processes people use to acquire new knowledge and skills. Current approaches to authentic learning and teaching for understanding fall within the realm of a cognitive view of learning. Authentic learning helps students to see connections between what is being taught and the world around them by using higher-level thinking skills. Students are also encouraged to problem solve and think critically. Here are a few examples of authentic assessments. Since the mid-1980s, several researchers have attempted to define how students construct understanding of new material. A constructivist view of learning focuses on how students make sense of new information. Ideas like scaffolding come from this viewpoint. The next part of Chapter 4 addresses learning styles. Recent research focuses greatly on students' learning styles. That's the approaches to learning that works best for each student. This is also known as learning modes or learning style preferences. Now, learning style is an emerging concept, and as of now, there is no single correct view of learning styles to really guide curriculum planners. Within the last decade, a lot of research has gone into creating conceptual models and learning style assessment instruments that have been developed. As curriculum leaders, it's important to be aware of the concept of learning styles and also to realize that some curriculum is going to be more effective for some students than for others.
Hi, my name is Megan Clem. The first article I'm going to review is called Probing More Deeply into the Theory of Multiple Intelligences. This article explains what the multiple intelligences are: logical, mathematical, linguistic, musical, spatial, bodily kinesthetic, interpersonal, and interpersonal. And then in the mid-90s, Gardner identified an eighth intelligence, which is naturalist. Gardner explains that these multiple intelligences are not fixed, so there can always, as research goes on, as he continues research, they can be added. More intelligences can be added. However, the authors of this article explain that Gardner's research is not necessarily based on empirical evidence. Therefore, we as educators should use the multiple intelligence theory, but we should use it with caution. It is one that can be used for helping with our curriculum, but not basing our curriculum on the multiple intelligences. So basically, kind of using it as a guide rather than a non-negotiable in sorts. This book recommends that you frequently review the curriculum to make sure that it is covering the multiple intelligences rather than simply looking at the multiple intelligences and trying to fit your curriculum into those areas. Even Gardner proposes that many educators have several misconceptions about multiple intelligences. He is quoted saying, "I've read and heard people talk about multiple intelligences as if there were a single intelligence composed of many parts, in direct contradiction to my claim that there exists a number of relatively autonomous human intellectual capacities." So the key points to kind of take away from this article is that we as educators were challenged, our challenge is to figure out how to help the individuals employ their distinctive intellectual profiles to help master the tasks and disciplines needed to thrive in the society. But we cannot assess intelligences. We can basically use them not so much as an assessment, but we're actually assessing the task that they're performing kind of underneath which intelligence we're trying to assess. And then we do, again, like I said earlier, we need to be leery as educators when we are, categorizing students. In fact, we shouldn't be categorizing them into certain multiple intelligences. And this is, he kind of talked about how a lot of educators fall, into that loop of looking at a student and saying, okay, well, they're more linguistic, and only giving them linguistic type activities, or they're more musical, so they in the confines of music, will give them more tasks to do then. But what happens there is that you're basically limiting that student and categorizing them so that they're not getting a full understanding of all the multiple intelligences, or a full way to show you that they could know how to do tasks in many different intelligences. So we definitely need to be careful when we're using the multiple intelligence theory within our classroom.